Alright, what's poppin', family? Alright, so this is gonna be a part two from my first video. And again, I'm trying to make these videos so when I say we, I'm talking about the melanated family. So when I'm making these videos, this is so that we can start communicating better with each other. And hopefully me making these videos will hopefully break down and see where we fail as a family and as a nation. You know what I'm saying? And so with that, you know what I'm saying, with the grace of the ancestors, hopefully I can get this point across, because I don't ever write anything down. Everything I do is off the top of my head and out the soul of my heart. So with that, I'm gonna keep with the idea of duality, which is lawful versus legal. And also I want to try to focus on the class, also known as the caste system. And I'm going to show that through this depiction of the Rosetta Stone. And how I want to start, I'm not really sure, but what sparked this video was, I post a lot on Facebook, you know what I'm saying, just to, mostly, like I say, just throw ideas and critical thinking thoughts out there to the public. And a lot of times I'll get feedback, a lot of negative feedback, number one. Positive too, but a lot of times I'll get a lot of negative feedback, but when I read the negative feedback, it's usually because you honestly didn't understand what I wrote. And just as an example, I'm gonna bring up one post. I ain't gonna call no names out or anything, but like I said, I'm just gonna bring out an example of a post that I posted and try to give people that, like I said, just an example. So I know I made a post one day about the word color, because a lot of times that's the word that it gets me a little bit, because like I said, when we speak, it is also a representation of what you know. And how you form your words together in a sentence. Like I say, if you're going into a courtroom, it shows a judge or even the DA where your mindset is by just on how you're speaking. And so a lot of times I might post on Facebook where I say, they still treat you like a slave because you still talk like one. And that's a realization that we as a people need to really kind of come to grips with. Number one, the fact that we were enslaved. And that we are not slaves, but that there was a point in time in our history that we became enslaved as if we were slaves. And so now when I say that statement, I say that because when we look at the word slave has its own origin. The word slave has its own meaning and a history behind it. The same way as the word Moor has a whole history behind it. Black has a whole history behind it. Race has a whole history behind it. And the example that I put on Facebook now, trying to get back to, was I went into this Black Law Dictionary and I read the definition of what it means to be colored, or what the word color means. And a lot of times everybody, they still get upset, if I try to really say what that word means, so we can first off understand of how they enslaved us through language and through our own misinterpretations of stuff that we think is real. And so the definition of color in the Black Law Dictionary says this: an appearance, semblance, as distinguished from that which is real. Basically. And then I did another word, colorable, and it also says that which is in appearance only and not in reality, having the appearance of truth. So when I post color, and then a young man, he really honestly, somebody shared it, and a young man, he commented under the post, and this is what he said. And mind you, I posed a question in my post that says, basically, after you read that definition, of what the word color means. Are you sure that you want to be identified as a person of color? Meaning that if I take that definition of color and I replace it in that statement, person of color, now it says person, now it'll say person, a person of, or person who's appearing as something real. And that's how we got to start kind of reading when we understand what words mean. When you understand what the meaning of the word means, then now you have to take that definition and put it in that word's place. So a person of color, now I know it to see, now I can only see it as a person who is in appearance only. A person who thinks it's reality, but it's really not. And then you have to take these concepts of color and apply it to a crayon. You have to apply it to the spectrum of light. Like, what is a color when I'm looking at it? Is nothing. A color is nothing but the reflection of light as it bounces off objects. So literally, like you looking at a rainbow, you can't touch it. It's not real. It's just a color. It's just there in appearance only. So now you have to apply that same logic into the law and into your life to understand that when these Europeans or these attorneys or these people who appear like they're in power, well, really they're in power because of colorable authority in appearance only. They appear like they're in charge. So you have to understand that. And furthermore, to understand our story and how they even did that to us, we have to, take it back to the beginning and understand that we were enslaved, and that it's going to take time and it's going to take, dedication to really understand what happened to us. And also for the family to understand that when you see guys like me or women who speak as I speak, or you have people who claim to be Moors and they're trying to teach, to understand that it's not about division. We're just trying to edify. Because if I go back into the Bible, it talks about the difference between prophecy and speaking in tongues. You speak in tongues, it's just like it's an unknown language. And also, the Bible will further say, basically like, okay, you can speak in tongues, cool. But do you understand what you just said? So if you don't understand what you just said, speaking in tongues is no good. It's no use for you. It's like, what is it for? Because you don't know what you're saying. You could be saying something evil. You don't know. But now prophecy, it said the difference is for the edification. It's for, it's something that you can take home. Like when you prophesy, it's something that it can be taken home. It's understood by everybody. So if I can speak in tongues, which is what this English language is, you're speaking in tongues. You're speaking into a language that you do not know. And we have to come to grips with that because we were enslaved as such. And now being taught a different language. And then take that back. What does being enslaved means? You were stripped from your culture. We were stripped of our language. We were stripped of our religion, our spirituality. And then the more you get into history, you will understand that even the spirituality that was given to us, you understand that the knowledge that they got, it was stolen from somewhere. And then they fed it back to you through legal agreements, through legal councils. And that's why I tell people we have to understand history. You know what I'm saying? Even this morning there was a post on Facebook about, it's a Christian brother. Trust me, that's my dog. We grew up together. And it's not to take a shot, but it's literally like this system has us living in emotions and not in facts. Meaning that my bro, he posted a post saying, all God wanted us to do was say yes. He said God didn't ask us to be perfect. I ain't comment on the post, but I wrote my own post. Because I remember Matthew 5:48 says, "Be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." So that goes back into us taking our emotions of what we want things to be and not literally what it says. And I have to get that to my grandfather because he's a bishop. He always taught. Really, he preached a lot like Dr. Laila Africa would preach, meaning that mean what you say and say what you mean. Meaning that if the word says this, then that's what it says. Don't try to make it out of something that made you feel good, that makes you feel good about your life. Not literally, what did it say? It said, "Be ye perfect, as your Father in heaven is perfect." So he did say be perfect. But then we'll get perfection twisted into our own, again, personal thing of what perfection is. When really, perfection is literally living a life like Christ taught you to live. And even in that talk, we have to understand the difference between Christ and Jesus. Do I want to go there now? We'll see about that. But again, this is just more about principles, duality, and knowing that there's a caste system. And so I kind of wanted to get more into how we feel as a family, how we feel as a nation, into this caste system or class system. If you remember from the first video, I broke it down to where mentally, the world is split up in 3 different classes, honestly. And again, just a quick overview of the Rosetta Stone. When they found a Rosetta Stone, and it had 3 different scripts on it. 3 different scripts, meaning down here, the script down here was written in Greek. And mind you, Greek is at that time, we're just going to say Greek is a common language. So this would be level 1 of today's caste system as just the common languages, which is English. So you can compare this to the lay person, or like from studying law. You know what I'm saying? They'll teach somewhat indirectly about, you have lay people, which is the average person, which is a civilian, somebody who's unlearned in the law. And in the caste system of America and the world, really, this is where we all fall into down here as lay people. Right? Okay, then you have the step up, which would be your educated people, your college educated people, your scholars, your professors, your scientists even, like, they will fall into this middle category. And this was called the demotic. This was your demotic language. And according to the Rosetta Stone, this area right here was signified by, I believe, hieroglyphics with the addition of phonetics. So you will have a picture of an image, and then you'll have something like a letter or something next to it. So this is how they were able to decipher languages through this Rosetta Stone. And again, I'm just going through it briefly so people can get an overview. But then up here, you had the higher attic. You had the higher attic. So basically, this part right here was just straight pictographs, straight hieroglyphics. And so the question was, or the issue was, has it been deciphered? And that is an argument. That is a deep argument that is still going on today. Some people say it has, some people say it hasn't. I'm under the knowledge that honestly it has been deciphered. Only because of spiritual knowledge. Because literally that's all this top half was, because it was hieroglyphics. And then we have to understand too that this knowledge goes back into our ancestry. you know what I'm saying, the melanated family's ancestry. Because the further you go back into history, the further you will find that the world, like if you look at my skin right now, this is melanin. The world was completely melanated at one point in time. The further back you go, that is what you will find. And so and then another thing about this Rosetta Stone, and even language, the more you get into your history, the more you get into the knowledge, you'll understand that, remember when I said down here, you had hieroglyphics with phonetics, aka phonetics comes from the Phoenicians. Now, the further you go into history, you understand that the Phoenicians are the ones who brought literally phonetics to the world. They brought the fact that we can see letters now into the world. That is what I'm saying. Then again, the further you go into history and you understand synonyms, the Phoenicians, who they are connected to, you will eventually find Carthage. And you will see that these are all basically the same people. And this is how I say you'll understand how we feel as a family once you start going back further and further and further. And so, and again, that is also a reason why we cannot communicate, because we don't really understand our story and the knowledge that we brought to the world. And I brought the Phoenicians out to say that, yes, number one, that they were a melanated people. And that a lot of times when I get into these conversations with our people, they'll go back into an emotion and say, well, I don't care what the white man say, or I don't care if it's just a word, you know what I'm saying? But I know me, I know my spirituality. I'm not, white man can say what he wants to. And that's the argument I'm trying to dit right now. Is for us to get out of that white man this, white man that, he did this, it's in a book, I can't trust it. And you're just going off of your blind spirit. And that is very, very dangerous, because that discredits your ancestors and what they brought to the world, number one. And that goes back into the duality thing of what was lawful. Because my whole theory from studying has been, the further back you go, the closer you'll get to the truth. You know what I'm saying? Versus us thinking up here, oh, we got all the technology, we know more. Well, actually, no, we've been dumbed down. Because we have to understand that in this spiritual war, this physical war, what happened to us is we were stripped of our knowledge of who we were. So that argument of, oh, the white man came up with the words, the white man came up with English and all the other stuff, then you can only accredit them for English, honestly. If I'm going through the history, you can only credit them from the English and the German. Meaning that, remember I told y'all I did a post about the word color. And a young man said, and like I said, I posed a question. Now, after you have read this definition, would you really want to be identified as a person of color? And his response was, not by the terms of racism. Like, for example, blacks were called colored, and everything in a book isn't true. Allah doesn't care who tells it. Then he goes on to say, the thing I love about Kemet is that they allow any color, they welcome any color, because with Kemet, it's about connecting all races to be spiritually in tune with one another. And that, again, the statement of how you put his words together lets me know that you haven't, I'm not going to say you haven't studied, but all I'm saying to people is, when we get into these discussions, that we don't realize how deep studying can go. Because at one point, I was pretty deep myself, or at least I thought I was. But until I ran across, like I said, the Duke of Tears, Asir. And the first word he brought out to me was Albayan. Like I said, sometimes you'll hear things like, I've never heard that word before. The only thing I remember thinking was, it sounds awfully close to the word albino. And so I looked deeper. I found out through, stuff like encyclopedias and stuff like that. This is really how I sharpened myself up. And so I took his word And I had to look it up. Like, bro, what is Albion? What is Albion? Just so I can run everybody back through my history and how I got to where I'm at. This was literally the first word. That woke me up. Alright. Alright, now the first thing when I look up the word Albion, it says, number one, it says see chalk. And it also says England. Albion, England. And so, mind you, when I found that, again, like I said, it's just right here, England. And they don't put any definitions about it. They don't go into detail as you see all the others, right? But that's what put the spark in me to search. Because it's in there for a reason. But I just didn't know why. So I went back to England. And I looked up England. Then you figure out, oh, it's the old name for England. So this is where you start realizing that the world that we see today did not exist in the time that we're reading about, like literally. Like we'll call that place England, but if I'm reading about it during the time of like in the 1400s, that place was called Albion. You know what I'm saying? Or if I'm talking about Spain, well, before it was Spain, it was called Al-Andalus or Andalusia, depending on what scholar you're reading. So what I'm saying is we'll open our minds to a greater history that has been given to us on Black History Month every February. That's basically what I'm saying. And again, to the young man's point, it shows we're not critically thinking. Because he says, first he says racism. He brings up race. Then he brings up black. Then he brings up color. And of course, stuff about books. And he also brought Kemet and bringing races and color. So basically, we have all these little terms that we've been brought up here in America. And then mind you, we have to understand language, you have to go back to the beginning, like you have to go back to hieroglyphics and understand what cultures brought what into the realm of academia. The same way, well, I don't even want to go that far yet, but let's start with race. Because what he's saying is terms of racism. And we have to understand that racism as we've been taught, and race as we've been taught, is an idea. It is a concept versus the word race existed before the concept of racism. You know what I'm saying? You have to understand that. Because before you were taught racism, what does race mean to you? It means competition. It means, you know what I'm saying, trying to get there somewhere fast. You know what I'm saying? So I can't even really say competition or race is just getting there quickly. I'm racing. I'm getting there quickly. That's it. You know what I'm saying? I don't even have to look that up. You know what I'm saying? You can go to etymology.com or your dictionary and literally look up race. And then usually by now, if you go to a dictionary, it'll probably give you bullet number 1. Race is this. It could be identified as one of the ethnic groups. But you have to understand that is the legal agreement between the people that are oppressing you. And then they're teaching you, now reteaching you what race is. Reteaching you. And then here's the thing that gets me most out of anything when our people, we get into this color thing. We'll say stuff like he just said, like blacks were called colored then. And you're separating, and I know it's like we'll separate these two as if black is not a color. You know what I'm saying? The same way we'll go Negro. That's Spanish for black. Again, black or something dark. You get what I'm saying? And that's also what I'm talking about. They keep us down here speaking as slaves, speaking as people who don't know who they are. Because when you don't know who you are, you'll call yourself anything. You'll accept anything because it made you feel good. We grew up being saying black, black pride, black panther, black this, black that. But once again, we didn't, like if you go back to the first video, I already broke down what the word black comes from. It comes from a German dialect. And mind you, what did we look up again? Anything German as an empire didn't come around until the 1800s. So you understand that. And then we do ourselves a discredit a lot of times. And I apologize for jumping around. Like I said, I just do this from off the soul of my heart. And I'm not, because then we have another word, because I'm just getting into history right now. And another word that a lot of times that, you know what I'm saying, it'll mess with me when I'm talking to, especially people who done went to college. They love using this word. Like, hold up. They like using this word. Now, depending on how they say it, some people say diaspora, some people say diaspora. I guess to sound fancy, I don't know. But, and again, if I look up, let's just look it up. Definition. All right. Definition of diaspora.
Here's the definition of diaspora: the dispersion of the Jewish people beyond Israel.
Okay, so they said the dispersion of the Jewish people beyond Israel. Interesting. Alright, so a lot of times, like we'll talk to scholars about this, right? And they'll say the African diaspora, which basically diaspora is just basically a dispersion of people. But like I said, when you start going into their legal definitions and stuff, you see how they'll put the connotation of the dispersion of the Jewish people beyond Israel. And so the same way now they'll say the African diaspora. So now that'll be the dispersion of African people beyond Africa. And again, we'll get locked in on Africa for some reason. Because history says the continent, oh no, first off, history says this. Man, y'all know how to spell Pangea. But anyway. Let's see, Pangea. Thought so. I don't know. But anyway. Pangea or Asia, whatever the heck we want to call it. The point is, the world at one point was one landmass, right? And this is where probably like debates will come in, right? I'm not even sure if I even want to explain it that way, because I'm trying to minimize confusion and disruption. So in fact, let's just go here. Instead of talking about that, let's go here. A lot of times they'll say basically they have this idea that anybody dark skinned, melanated, we all come from the continent Africa, which is just kind of goofy when you think about it. Because if we, and mind you, that has become a mantra, right? that has become a mantra for so long, from the inception of Roots, from them putting it into our minds that a group of pale Europeans went over there, whooped your ancestors' butt, threw you on a boat, and brought you over here. And then act like your ancestors never made it to America before them. I mean, we have Mansa Musa, we have all this history that says basically, if I go back to the Rosetta Stone, if you look up who the Phoenicians were, they were the first people, well, according to, like I said, the encyclopedias and whatnot, it'll say, like, these were the first people to circumnavigate the world. So the Phoenicians were, you know what I'm saying, they were a great sea people. So, but again, back to this thing where they created a mantra to say, if you're black, if you're dark, if you have curly head, you have to come from Africa, and that everybody comes from Africa, which is a misnomer, number one, and it's created probably some delusionalism within our people. Because to say that we all descend from Africa, it'll say, like I said, to say we all came from here, to say we all came from Africa, it negates the fact that you have a soul, number one. And that is what, you know what I'm saying, I had to come up with the best argument. You know what I'm saying? Since it's about to go, online or whatever. So the best argument, without getting technical into the land and who conquered who, we have to go back to this lawful, which, like I said in the first video, lawful also means spiritual. Spiritual, because like the cosmos don't change. The cosmos is the cosmos. Man cannot manipulate the cosmos as much as he tries. So when I say lawful, that's what I'm talking about. The one thing man and mankind cannot manipulate is the spirit realm. That's simple. So what I'm saying is now is this concept that we all come from Africa we have to really discuss it, because literally, like I said, to say we all come from Africa negates the fact that you have a soul, and your soul did not originate in Africa. And that's where we have the initial war on what's going on with us as a people, to understand our story as a people. Our story does not start with the European pale man and woman. Our story starts with us and understanding who we are as we are connected to the cosmos. And so when we're talking about melanin, I did a post earlier today that says melanin is basically your Holy Spirit. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that, our oppressors are trying to cut us off from. And like I said, this war goes back between us as, the Anunnaki and stuff like that. And so to understand that this is a spiritual war, and it's not a physical war. If anything, the spirit is using the physical to play delusional games on our minds. And I honestly don't even know how deep I want to go with this today. But other than knowing that, like I said, I just want to bring this communication with us as a family back together. Because like you said, if we say everybody is from Africa, you negate the fact that you have a soul, and your soul did not originate in land. You know what I'm saying? So the argument that we're having as a people is deeper. The arguments that we have as a people about Christ is deeper than what we're giving it credit for. And so to understand that caste system of how we went from a lawful spiritual soul that fell into the land, and began to walk upright as man. That is what we're talking about. And again, we then even and again to understand that Africa is a continent divided by, you know what I'm saying, many tribes. Many tribes, you know what I'm saying? So one tribe might call it Alkebulan, you know what I'm saying? One tribe might call it Ethiopia. But to understand this right here is what, and this is what enslavement did to us. We have been disconnected from the body. You can even look at that as that little pyramid on the back of your dollar bill that is now disconnected from itself. And they only keep us down here stuck in this low vibratory realm. And so, once again, it's just another quick, short video. Throw out some concepts just to explain, like, when we study, or even when you see me post on Facebook, just know that it's deeper than what I'm saying. And that, you know what I'm saying, it takes a build, it takes time, it takes time to be serious about what we're studying as a people. Because it's too much, like, honestly, we do this to ourselves. Any problem that we have today, we're doing it to ourselves today. And you can honestly say that because I don't have a chain. I don't have chains on my hand. The chain is up here. You know what I'm saying? The more we get blinded by material things, material wealth and gains, we can't see what's been happening to our own family right in front of our eyes. And it's all through misconceptions of language, law. Because once again, we have to honestly reteach ourselves and be honest with ourselves about this reading thing. Because that is what is holding us back, is communication. You know what I'm saying? Communication and, you know what I'm saying, a lack of knowledge. So we're trying to bring this thing up to bring the conversation up, really. Like I said, maybe I'll try to start going live so I can get like a clear shot of what to say. But alright, family, I'm gonna rock out. Peace and love.